If I had known that it was all a lie, maybe I would have never allowed myself to feel, to give in to my first time. I've always been the kind of girl who goes unnoticed, the kind who sits in the back of the class, who keeps her eyes down in the hallways, who prefers a book to a party. And honestly, I never cared. But everything changed when he showed up. Noah Carter, popular, handsome, confident. The kind of guy who seems to belong to a completely different world than me. And for some reason I couldn't understand, he started talking to me. At first it was discreet glances, smirks, then casual comments, small accidental touches. And before I knew it, he was asking me questions about myself, my tastes, my dreams, my fears. No one had ever done that before. It was scary at first. I wondered what he wanted, what was the reason for this sudden attention. But as time went on, I started to let my guard down. After all, how could I resist? He was funny, kind in an unexpected way, and when he was with me, he seemed sincere. I found myself smiling more, blushing when our eyes met, anxiously waiting for the moment he would walk into the classroom. The worst part? For the first time in my life, I felt seen. But what I didn't know was that while I was falling in love, he was just playing. The game I still had no idea was happening, and the deadline was running out. If I had known it was a game, would I have been able to stop my heart from falling so low? I had never felt anything like this before. The butterflies in my stomach when I saw his name appear on my phone, the way my eyes involuntarily searched for him in the hallways, as if, suddenly, everything around me had become dull, and he was the only thing that mattered. Noah Carter made me feel special. And the worst part? I wanted to believe it was real. At first, I thought it was a bad joke. The most popular guy in school, always surrounded by girls who would do anything for a single glance from him, was suddenly interested in me. It didn't make sense, but he insisted, day after day, breaking down my barriers. "You have this habit of running away," he said once, as we walked together through campus. "It's like you think that if you became invisible, no one would hurt you." Those words hit me in a way that hurt. I had never said that to anyone. How could he know? "And you?" I replied, trying to hide my vulnerability. "What do you think you're doing now?" He smiled sideways, that damn smile that made my heart skip a beat. "Trying to prove that I see you." And he saw it. God, how he saw it. The moments between us began to become more intense, more intimate. He knew exactly how to disarm me. A gentle touch on the arm, a whispered compliment, an inside joke that only the two of us understood. Little by little, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, he really liked me. But I didn't know about the bet. I didn't know that while I was falling in love, he was just collecting points in a cruel game. Noah kissed me for the first time on a cloudy afternoon in the almost empty parking lot of the school. It was out of nowhere. One moment we were talking. The next, his fingers were on my face, his gaze locked on mine, as if asking for permission. And I gave in. His lips were warm, firm, demanding. A shock ran through my entire body, my heart beating so hard it hurt. It was the kind of kiss that steals your breath, that makes the world disappear. And I lost myself in it. After that, everything sped up. Noah wasn't just a kiss. He was hands exploring my skin, low, husky words in my ear, silent promises in every touch. Every time we saw each other, the desire between us grew, pulling me towards something unknown and addictive. I didn't know that. For him, Everything had a deadline. I didn't know that my heart was being counted like a trophy, and when I found out, it would be too late. If I had paid more attention, I would have noticed the signs, but I didn't want to see them. After that first kiss, there was no going back. Noah Carter turned my world upside down. He was in my every thought, in my every fantasy, in every quickened beat of my heart. The way he looked at me, the way he touched me, the way he made me feel, it was intoxicating. Every time we were together, he went a little further, pushing boundaries I didn't even know I had. His hands glided over my skin as if they had a right to be there, and each touch burned in a way that made me forget any fear. But the most dangerous thing wasn't what he did to my body. It was what he did to my mind. He made me laugh like no one else. He made me feel special, desired. He made me believe that I was the only thing that mattered to him. And I believed him. The first time we went out on a real date together, I was almost nervous. I didn't know what to wear, how to act, what to say. But when he showed up at my door with a crooked smile and a leather jacket, everything disappeared. He was Noah, and he wanted to be with me. That was all that mattered. We went to a small diner, far from the city, where no one would recognize us. Inside, everything seemed easier. He stole fries from my plate, told ridiculous stories about his childhood, looked at me like I was the most interesting thing in the world. And when we left, he pressed me against his car and kissed me again. A slow, intense kiss, as if he were tasting me. I was shaking all over. "Do you have any idea what you do to me?" he murmured against my mouth, his breath hot on my skin. I should have asked him the same thing. But at that moment, it didn't matter. After that night, we were inseparable. He took me away from prying eyes, found excuses to pull me into empty corners of the school, texted me in the middle of the night just to say he was thinking about me. And then came the moment that changed everything. The night I almost gave myself completely to him. It was a random Friday, and Noah showed up at my door, saying he wanted to take me to a special place. I should have been suspicious. I should have asked more, but I trusted him. We climbed to a remote viewpoint where the city spread out in lights below. It was beautiful, silent, just the two of us and the sound of the wind. He pulled me into his arms, his fingers drawing lazy circles on my waist. "I've never felt like this before," he whispered. My heart sank. "Like what?" He didn't answer. He just kissed me, laid me down on the hood of the car, his hands exploring my skin with urgency. I felt the weight of the moment. Something inside me screamed that this was a line from which there was no turning back. "I've never done this before," I confessed, my voice barely audible. He stopped. His eyes locked on mine, and for an instant, I saw something different in them. Guilt. He caressed my face and smiled, but there was something wrong with that smile. "We'll only do this when you're ready, okay?" I should have understood at that moment. Something in him hesitated, as if a part of him was about to tell me everything. But he didn't. And I continued in love, unaware that my heart was racing against an invisible clock. The deadline was approaching, and when the truth came out, it would destroy everything. The worst thing about a broken heart is not the pain. It's the humiliation of realizing that it was all a lie. After that night at the gazebo, I was completely lost in him. Noah Carter was my first love, the first boy to really look at me, to make me feel desired, to make me want something more. Every touch of his was a silent promise. Every kiss, a step closer to an abyss from which I could no longer retreat. And he seemed to feel the same. In the days that followed, something changed in him. His touches became longer, his gazes more intense. But at the same time, there was a tension in his shoulders, as if he was always about to say something and then decided against it. I should have paid attention. I should have noticed the strange looks in the hallways, the evil smiles of his friends when they saw me passing by. But I was blinded by the idea that, for the first time in my life, someone wanted to be with me. And then came the moment that destroyed everything. It was a Friday, and the school was organizing a party at the house of one of the players on the football team. I never went to these events. I never felt comfortable around so many people, so much noise, so much superficiality. But Noah insisted. "I want to show you to the world," he said, holding my face between his hands. "I want everyone to know that you're mine." That broke me. So I went. I wore a dress that made me feel beautiful. I left my hair down, just the way he liked it. When I arrived, my heart was beating fast, but Noah quickly pulled me close to him, keeping his hand firmly on my waist, as if he wanted to protect me. For a while, it was perfect. He introduced me to some people, made me laugh, stole kisses from me in the middle of the living room. I felt safe by his side, as if nothing could ruin that night. But the truth always finds a way to come out. We were in the kitchen when I heard my name being whispered. Man, I still can't believe he did it. He has, until the end of the semester, right? Yeah, but it's already in the bag. She's completely in love with him. The laugh that came after was cruel. My fingers tightened around the glass I was holding. The air grew heavy around me. A lump tightened in my throat. I turned slowly, my stomach churning. Across the kitchen, 3 of Noah's friends were laughing among themselves, unaware of my presence. "He just has to take her to bed and that's it," one of them said. "It's his money." My body froze. The world seemed to shatter around me. Bets. I was a bet. Every kiss, every touch, every passionate look. It was all part of a game I never knew I was playing. My hands were shaking as I searched for Noah in the crowd. My heart was hammering against my chest, a mix of anger and despair growing inside me. And then I saw him. He was leaning against the wall, watching the party with that easy, calm smile, as if nothing had happened, as if he hadn't just destroyed everything. I felt the bitter taste of betrayal in my mouth. I walked towards him with firm steps, feeling the adrenaline rush through my veins. When Noah saw me, he smiled. "Hey, honey, are you having fun?" My hand smacked against his face before I could think. The noise echoed in the room. The music wasn't loud enough to hide it. Everyone around stopped what they were doing, their eyes turning to us. He blinked a few times, stunned, bringing his hand to his face. "What? You lied to me." My voice was shaking, but not from fear, from hate. "All of this, it was just a game to you, wasn't it?" His eyes widened. He was going to deny it. I knew he would, but I didn't give him time. "I heard your friends." My throat was dry. "I heard about the bet, about how all you wanted was to get me into bed before the end of the semester." The pain in his eyes was instantaneous, but I didn't know if I could believe her anymore. "It's not like that." "So how is it, Noah?" My voice got louder. "Explain it to me. Tell me why the hell I was stupid enough to believe that you liked me." Silence. The people around us watched us as if they were watching a show. Some whispered. Others just looked on with pity. But the one who hurt the most was him. Noah was just standing there, not saying a word, because there was nothing I could say. I let out a humorless laugh, feeling the tears burn my eyes. That's what I thought. And then I left. I left the party with my chest on fire, my heart broken, and the certainty that I would never look at him the same way again. I didn't know if he would come after me, but at that moment, it didn't matter. I couldn't believe him anymore. I wanted to hate him, but most of all, I wanted the pain to stop. The walk to my house was a blur. The air felt heavy, as if each step was a struggle against the ground. My thoughts swirled like a hurricane in my head, replaying every word, every laugh, every mocking look I heard at that party. A bet. Money. Take me to bed before the end of the semester. My throat closed up just thinking about it. Everything we had lived, every moment that had been real to me, was nothing more than a game to him. I felt stupid, vulnerable, dirty. I had loved a liar. And worst of all, part of me still wanted him to prove to me that none of that was true. But it was. I got home without realizing how. I walked right past my mother, who called me with concern, and locked myself in my room. My legs gave way, and I slid down the door until I fell to the floor, my face buried in my knees. And then I cried. I cried as if my entire body was falling apart. I cried until my breath became short and labored, until the pain became physical. I hated Noah. I hated myself for loving him. I hated the fact that even after everything, I still missed him. I just wanted him to go away. But he didn't. The next day, Noah Carter was at my door. I woke up to a knock on my window. My heart started racing, and when I looked outside, there he was. His eyes were red. His hair was messy, like he hadn't slept. My first instinct was to ignore him, to pretend he didn't exist, that he wasn't there. But when I turned to go back to bed, I heard his voice. Please. A plea. I closed my eyes tightly, wanting to ignore him, but deep down, I knew I had to face him. I walked down the stairs in silence, opened the door, and faced him. Go away, Noah. He didn't move. Let me explain. I laughed humorlessly. Explain what? How you bet money on my dignity. How you used me to have fun with your friends. How you made me believe you loved me while you laughed behind my back. He shuddered at my words. It wasn't like that. No. I crossed my arms. So tell me, Noah, how was it? He ran his hands over his face, exhausted. I can't change what I did. His voice was raw, painful. Yes, at first. It was a bet. My stomach turned. But you have to believe me. He took a step forward and I stepped back. I fell in love with you, really. I tried to tell you. I tried to stop. But I was afraid of losing you. I looked at him in disbelief. Afraid of losing me? You already lost me, Noah. His face contorted in pain. I would do anything to turn back time. I swallowed hard. For a second, a part of me wanted to believe him. I wanted to close my eyes and throw myself into his arms, pretending none of this had happened. But I knew that if I did that, I would be throwing my dignity away. It doesn't work like that. My voice was low, tired. You can't undo what you did. Noah took a step back, as if my words had physically hit him. I love you. I squeezed my eyes shut. This was cruel, because I knew that, somewhere in my heart, I still loved him too. But love wasn't enough. You destroyed me, Noah. I opened my eyes and stared into his, full of despair. And I will never trust you again. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. This was the end. I saw it in his eyes when he realized it. Noah Carter, the guy who broke my heart, finally understood that there was nothing he could do to fix it. And then he left. I waited for him to come back, but for the first time, he didn't. They say time heals everything, but they never tell you about the part where you have to survive the pain first. Noah was gone, this time, for real. And me? I tried to move on. The first few days were hell. Waking up and realizing I wouldn't get another text from him. Walking through the halls of school and feeling the pitying looks, the whispers, the snickers. I'd never been the kind of girl who drew attention to myself. But suddenly, everyone knew my name, and everyone knew the bet. The world as I knew it was turned upside down. Some people came up to me with sympathetic expressions. Others just stared, as if they expected me to fall apart right there. And some just laughed. It was obvious that it was going to end like this. Did you really think he liked her? It was only fun while it lasted. Every word was a stab. But what hurt the most was him. Noah seemed out of it. He didn't smile with his friends anymore. He didn't look at me in the hallways. He didn't try to reach out to me anymore. And that, somehow, was worse. Because if he had gone back to acting like he used to, I could hate him more easily. I could tell myself that he never really felt anything, but he was hurting. And that meant that, on some level, it had been real for him too. I just didn't know if that was enough. Time passed. The pain didn't go away, but it became more bearable. I didn't cry every night anymore. I didn't relive every moment, trying to find a sign that I should have seen before. But forgetting, that still seemed impossible. And then one day, something unexpected happened. I was in the cafeteria, sitting alone, when I heard a voice behind me. "Can I sit here?" I looked up and saw Lucas. He was on the basketball team, but he didn't hang out with Noah's group. He had a reputation for being quiet, more reserved, and most of all, he didn't seem like he was there to laugh at me. I hesitated for a moment, then shrugged. "If you want." He sat down and started eating without saying anything. It was weird, but it was also the first moment I felt normal again. The days passed, and Lucas continued to sit with me. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we just ate in silence. And slowly, I began to realize something. He liked me, not in the way Noah liked me, or pretended to like me, but he was interested. What about me? I wanted to give myself a chance. So when he asked me out, I said yes. Not because I was in love, but because I wanted to see if someday I could be. The first time I saw Noah after that was on a Saturday night. Lucas and I had gone out to get a milkshake after the movies. We were standing in line when I felt a gaze burning into my back. I knew it was him before I even turned around. Noah was across the diner, watching me. His jaw was set, his eyes dark as a storm. My heart sank, but I held on tight to Lucas's hand and continued on as if I hadn't seen him, because for the first time, I realized something. Noah was no longer the center of my world, and maybe, someday, I wouldn't feel anything for him anymore. You never completely forget your first love. You just learn to live without it. Lucas was a gentle breeze after the storm. He made me laugh. He listened to me. He didn't try to rush anything. With him, there were no games or ulterior motives. He was safe, stable, everything Noah had never been. But still, sometimes when we were together, I would find my mind wandering, comparing, trying not to remember. I hated it. Hated that after everything, Noah was still trapped somewhere inside me. It was unfair. But feelings are never fair, are they? 2 months passed. The whole school had gotten over the bet. I was no longer a hot topic of gossip. My name was no longer whispered in the hallways. And Noah. Well, he came back to life too. I saw the pictures on Instagram. Parties, games, smiles. Him surrounded by friends, girls. He moved on. I should have too. But then that night came. It was a rainy Friday, and Lucas asked me out on a date. A simple dinner. Something without much pressure. I put on a light dress and subtle makeup. I wanted this night to be special. I wanted to feel something different. But when I got to the restaurant and saw who was there, everything fell apart. Noah. He was sitting at a table with some friends, and a girl was standing next to him. She was beautiful. Blonde, bright-eyed, and smiling in a way that made my chest tighten. I tried not to look, but Noah did. Our eyes met for a split second, and that was all it took. There was something there, a tension, a weight. Lucas took my hand and guided me to our table. I needed to focus. Noah was no longer my problem. I had Lucas. I was happy, wasn't I? But then, in the middle of the night, it happened. I went to the bathroom trying to catch my breath when I heard the door open behind me. My body knew before I even turned around. It was Noah. He closed the door, blocking the exit. His eyes were intense, as if they were holding 1,000 unspoken words. "Are you okay?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. He laughed humorlessly. "I should be asking that." I crossed my arms. "There's nothing wrong with me." "No?" He tilted his head. "Then why are you here all alone, looking like you've seen a ghost?" I took a deep breath. "I just need a minute." "Do you still think about me?" My heart skipped a beat. "What?" "You still think about me, don't you?" I felt my blood boil. "You have no right to ask me that." He took a step forward, and my body went on alert. Not out of fear, but because after all this time, Noah Carter could still make me feel things I didn't want to feel. "You can pretend you're over me." His voice was low, husky. "You can pretend he's enough, but we both know the truth." I swallowed hard. "What's the truth, Noah?" He ran his tongue over his lips, studying me as if trying to decide if he should say it. And then he whispered, "You still love me." The air left my lungs. He was wrong. He had to be wrong. But the worst part, I wasn't sure. Love can be real, and yet not be right. Noah stood there inches away from me, waiting for me to say something, waiting for me to confirm what he believed, that I still loved him. And for a second, my heart faltered. I could lie. I could say no, that he was wrong, that my heart now belonged to someone else. But I knew the truth, and so did Noah. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the moment fall upon me. "Maybe I still love you, Noah." His eyes shone with a hope that tore me apart. But love isn't enough. The glow disappeared as quickly as it had appeared. He shook his head. "You can't be serious." But I was. Because love, no matter how intense, didn't erase what happened. It didn't erase the fact that he hurt me. And most of all, it didn't change the fact that I no longer trusted him. "I can't go back to you." My voice came out softer than I expected. "Not after everything." He closed his eyes, as if trying to prepare himself for what was coming next. "Do you think Lucas is the right guy for you?" I sighed. "I don't know, but I know he's never made me cry." Noah swallowed hard, and my heart broke all over again. For an instant, I saw the boy I fell in love with. The one who made me laugh, who looked at me like I was the only person in the world. But I also saw the boy who destroyed me, and that was the difference between us. I could love him forever, but I loved myself enough to know that this love wasn't healthy. He ran a hand through his hair in frustration. So, that's it? I nodded. That's it. For a long moment, he just looked at me. Then he let out a bitter laugh. I messed up, didn't I? A lump formed in my throat. Yes, and there's nothing I can do? My eyes stung, but I kept my head up. No, Noah. His shoulders slumped in defeat. He turned, opened the door, and hesitated for a second. I never meant to hurt you. I swallowed the pain and gave a small, sad smile, but it hurt. And then he was gone. For real this time. Life went on. Lucas and I tried. But deep down, I knew it wasn't fair to him. He deserved someone who loved him completely, and I was still mending the broken pieces of myself. So one day, I sat down with him and was honest. He understood, because Lucas was exactly the kind of person Noah had never been. Honest, kind, and patient. We said goodbye as friends, and for the first time in a long time, I felt free. Free from Noah. Free from the pain. Free to discover who I was without the shadow of a love that consumed me. And in the end, that was all I needed.